catalyst dilemma used to have a negative connotation in my life, and all I needed to do was shift my perspective and be grateful for it and all the blessings being a catalyst has meant to my life, and I started seeing it as a good. And once I made that shift, my life opened up in a whole new way, and it wasn't too long ago that I made that shift.
Hi, I'm Shannon Lucas.
And I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And we're the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change. This is our podcast,
Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out,
where we highlight catalysts that are creating amazing change in the world. In this season of the podcast, we are diving deep into the skills that make catalysts successful. And we are insanely honored today to have Chris Schembra with us. We are fangirls. Chris Schembra is the Wall Street Journal best-selling author of Gratitude Through Hard Times, which I highly recommend, and Gratitude and Pasta. USA Today calls him their gratitude guru. He's a founding member of Rolling Stone magazine's Culture Council, and he sits on the executive board at Fast Company magazine. He's also the founder of the 747 Gratitude Experience, an evidence-based framework used to strengthen client and team relationship in profound ways. He's used the principles of gratitude to spark over 500,000 relationships, serving Fortune 50 CEOs, Olympians, Academy Award winners, Grammy Award-winning #1 recording artists, Super Bowl champions, and more. And I just have to say on a personal note, Chris, thank you for sort of mainstreaming gratitude and also your vulnerability in your work and the podcast and the things that you bring into the world. It really demonstrates the healing power of gratitude, which we are so grateful for. So thanks for joining us today, Chris.
Hey, thanks for having us. And gosh golly, I wouldn't be remiss to give some gratitude to the people who paved the way for us to do this work before us, Chester Elton and Robert Emmons and Janice Kaplan, and so many groundbreaking pioneers in the research and implementation of gratitude within the workplace. And we're just doing our part to ride their coattails.
Awesome. I love that as a beginning. And actually, I'm going to change the format of our podcast, and I'm going to ask you two to share 3 things that you're grateful for today.
Tracy first. Oh, me or you two, like Tracy? Tracy first.
You duke it out. Tracy first.
And I'm doing 3, Shan.
3.
All right. I'm going to borrow one that we did yesterday in our weekly gratitude practice, working with people who are self-aware. It's unbelievable to have that as a starting point. I'm going to add one from the conversation we just got to have with you, Chris. People who do the work. Whew. So deeply grateful to be surrounded by people who are committed to doing the work and always making themselves better. And number 3, I'm incredibly grateful for my family. Every single day it fills me up. I love to get those few minutes in the morning before work starts to get my hugs and snuggles, and it really starts out the day perfect every day.
I like that. I am grateful for my partner Molly, who supports me on a very consistent basis. But last night she stepped in and helped me make a big proposal pretty for someone, and that was really super neat that we can then hopefully share in the success and the wins of that thing together. And specifically, I've earmarked the money that the revenue from that specific project will go towards bringing Molly back to her great-grandparents' childhood home in the north of Italy, and being able to bring Molly to that ancestral place. I'm grateful for the ability to learn a new language and connect with others through that new language. I think it expands the mind, and it's allowed me to reconnect with some people who are also going through the study of these new languages in their own life. And I'm grateful for technology. I just think that there's some really unique things that are coming down the pike between artificial intelligence and Zoom communications, and they oftentimes get a very bad rap. but I've certainly been able to use them for extreme positives, and they've allowed us to have a bigger impact on those around us. So I'm grateful for that tremendously.
Awesome. I felt like it's only fair that I answer the question myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful for time with my mom. I'm in Florida right now, and every day is a gift. So I'm super grateful for that. I'm grateful for calls for my son. He's 21, almost 22, out in the world. And he called yesterday, and it's always so lovely to get the updates about the truck that's not working with the brakes. You know, you're like, oh, maybe I'm glad you didn't call. I don't know. I didn't need to know that piece of information. And I'm also grateful for a great couples therapist. I mean, doing the work is everything, as we were talking about earlier, and it's really hard to find really great therapists, especially I think couples therapists who can hold space for the two people. So those are my gratitudes.
Thanks for going there. Thanks for asking it. Thanks for getting vulnerable, you two.
Likewise. All right. So we always kick off with, how do you relate to the concept of catalyst?
Well, how would you define the word catalyst?
Well, I will answer that question, but I want to hear how you relate to the concept of catalyst.
You know what? It goes back to a time in my life where I was hanging out with this great fella named Michael Roderick. And Michael Roderick is the consummate connector. He runs a relationship adventure day. He runs the Connector Con. He's a true catalyst in every sense of in every sense of the way. And when I was getting my start around the dinner table, and for those of you who are just tuning in, I used to host a metric ton of dinner parties. I'm talking about every week, every month, every night, whatever, people were gathering in our home to connect and have a meaningful moment of vulnerability and connection. And Michael Roderick and I used to talk about this dilemma that we were facing, which is that we're always known as some of the ones that brought together a lot of people, and those people would meet each other and they'd go out and create immense change in the world. And the dilemma that we were talking about is that oftentimes when you're the one known for bringing people together, sometimes you're the last one invited to their party. Because when someone knows you as someone who knows everybody, they oftentimes just assume you're being taken care of by another group. And we used to call it the catalyst dilemma. Some people have written about the innovator's dilemma. Some people have written about other kinds of dilemma. We had our catalyst dilemma. And we talked about that for a long time. And what's interesting is that I used to talk about it in a negative way. I used to only focus in on the negative aspects of bringing so many people together and facilitating their moments of change. Until I realized, golly, you're ignoring the positive benefits of bringing together so many people and facilitating their change and what that's meant to your life. So the catalyst dilemma used to have a negative connotation in my life, and all I needed to do was shift my perspective and be grateful for it and all the blessings being a catalyst is meant to my life. And I started seeing it as a good. And once I made that shift, my life opened up in a whole new way. And it wasn't too long ago that I made that shift.
I love that. I will answer your question and then I want to build on that. So the way that we describe catalyst is it's someone who sees sort of infinite possibilities. We're always connecting the dots, and from that we start to see a way that the world could be better. And if we stopped there, we might just be a visionary or something like that. But we have this, almost implicit need to move into action quickly to make that a reality. And the way that we do that, and often because what we're doing is net new, is we'll bring an experimentation mindset to how we're actually going to realize that vision, because there often isn't a playbook. And interestingly, and it connects with what you said, is that people see us in their own light. They see us as being, comfortable with risk and ambiguity. Often to us, it seems risky not to do it. And so we don't feel like it's that risky. It's riskier to not do the other thing. But I think connected with what you just said is people also not just see us as being comfortable with risk, but like in what you were just talking about, like we're taken care of, like we're leaning in, it's all okay. The other thing that I love about what you just said is it's the catalyst. We can move the bar on the vision, right? So we'll set this first vision and it'll seem impossible at the beginning, and then we'll move into action, and sometimes we blow past that first thing so fast. What we see behind that foothill is what we think is the actual summit, and so we won't be able to stop and recognize the progress and change that we've already made. And it's interesting because for Catalyst, one of the places that we can really get hung up is the not celebrating. To your point, it's like the pivot in the, but actually, let me stop and take a moment and look at all of the people that I have connected that you were talking about, all of the impact. And it's one of the skills that we work with Catalyst, which is also why gratitude is so important, because if we don't stop and take a minute, we can focus on all of the resistance that we've encountered, all of the names we've been called, all of the pushback that we're experiencing, the loneliness that we're experiencing, instead of looking at me like, actually, I couldn't have done that with all these people on the journey with me. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's you're so right. You need to have an attitude of gratitude in order to be a good catalyst. Now, here's what I mean by that. For those of you who are listening, and those of you who are taking actions on making change within the workplace, making change outside of the workplace, making change within your own personal life, whatever it may be, you have a choice. Every day that you wake up, you can either dwell on the negative or appreciate the good. We say that when you wake up and dwell on the negative, you are being plagued by ingratitude. When you wake up and appreciate the good, you're living through an attitude of gratitude. Now, what you were just talking about is that when you set a vision and you take action and you're curious about your connections and you can really be innovative and you can really do all these great things, right? You can't access what you need to access in order to do that unless you're maintaining an attitude of gratitude. Here's what I mean. Ingratitude is caused by fear, anxiety, guilt, shame, anger, comparison, regret, anger, all these kind of things. You can achieve massive success and be a good catalyst by operating through fear and anxiety and anger and guilt and shame, but it will only limit your potential. True potential as a catalyst is by having the right network, having the right vision, having the right project that you're working on, and having empathy and curiosity and engagement and connection and all these positive things. So if you don't have a positive state of mind yourself, you can't create these massively positive changes for yourself and others. So it's a very important shift. You could be a catalyst because of fear and anxiety. Like being a catalyst could be your way of distracting yourself from being a miserable sod. Oh, I might as well distract myself from being miserable by going out and creating change for others. That's operating based on ingratitude. I'd rather you do catalyst work because you genuinely want greater empathy and connection in this world.
Yeah, it's so interesting because we can think of some of the sort of like classic people that we would point to as catalysts, like a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk, and we can't argue that they didn't make impact. But I think one of the questions, and you bring this up in your book, is like, okay, you can be wildly successful, but if you're miserable as a human being and you're making the people around you miserable, like, what is this time on Earth worth to you?
So the interesting thing about the two of them is that the two of them appear on our presentation called the 8 Obstacles of Ingratitude. So what we, through our own anthropological paradoxing, sitting, fancy stuff that Tracy does, we have sat with a ton of leaders over the last 8 years, tens of thousands of people over the last 8 years, and listened to what was preventing them from being grateful. And we started listening to a lot of core themes. And we ended up saying that there's 8 things within ourselves that prevent us from practicing gratitude. There's like 8 personas in a leader that prevents them from being grateful. You got the never satisfied nonstop leader. You got the perfectionist, precisionist leader. You've got the authoritarian kind of dictator leader. You got all these different types of things. You've got the victim leader, the codependent leader, all these kind of things. Elon Musk is in our presentation as the never satisfied nonstop leader. And I correlate him to Alexander Hamilton. If you listen to the Hamilton soundtrack, there's literally songs that say they're titled Nonstop and Never Satisfied. That's Elon Musk. Now, what happened to Alexander Hamilton? Cheated on his wife. His son got killed. He got killed, et cetera, et cetera. He achieved a tremendous amount of things, but what was the point?
Right.
He died in early death, and so did his son. So it's a warning sign for Elon Musk. If he doesn't change, imagine what he could accomplish if he was actually grateful for what he's accomplished before. And Steve Jobs is on our presentation as the precisionist leader. This is the very seeks perfection and order, even at the detriment to themselves and others. Now, what does that do to teams? What does that do to creating a culture of innovation and change within? It's a miracle that Apple's one of the most innovative companies of all time, with a miserable sod in control, right?
Yes, totally.
So it's funny you mentioned those two names.
So I love this. So part of the work that Tracy and I love doing is working with Catalyst to help them lead as individuals their best, most intentional life. This life is precious. It's a gift that just feels like so gratifying to lean into. The thing that we know about Catalyst, though, whether we're born or made, how we show up in the world is it's in service of creating the change first, usually, often at the expense of ourselves, which is why the name of the book, The Burnout Piece, is real. And so one of the things that helps shift Catalyst's relationship with that hard driving things that puts them in the back seat or negates their sense of self-worth in a way, or self-prioritization, is helping them connect with the fact that a burnt out catalyst creates no change at all.
Yeah.
So I'd love to pivot this conversation, because I think gratitude certainly helps me. I sent Chris my long list when we first got connected of my deep gratitude practices. It's something that I really believe in that helps me lead a personally enriched and satisfying life. But I'd love to pivot the conversation to understanding, in a catalyst world, they're coming up against resistance in large organizations, sort of by definition. They might themselves become the lightning rod of the change. Help me understand how gratitude can help catalysts unblock the change. Maybe we won't do it for ourselves first, but we might do it in service of, if it helps us create our change more effectively.
I want to come back to the word discernment. But first I want to start by talking about how gratitude can help you cultivate resilience. To us, gratitude isn't best practiced during good times. Gratitude is best practiced during hard times. It's literally the name of our Wall Street Journal best-selling book, Gratitude Through Hard Times. And why that's so important for a catalyst within an organization is that when you're facing hard times, when you're running up against resistance, when the obstacles seem insurmountable, that is the best time to practice gratitude. Why? Because cultivating a resilience through gratitude can create greater self-confidence, self-efficacy, compassion, courage, creativity, bravery, whatever needed to push through these obstacles to get the job done. Ryan Holiday, before we got on the podcast, I was speaking. I was telling a story about something, and you say, "Gosh, you really are a stoic," or at least you prescribe to stoic writings. For all of you who are listening out there, there's a way of thinking, a way of living that has survived for thousands of years, that maximizes positive emotions, minimizes negative emotions, and has helped some of the biggest leaders in the history of the world get good shit done. These are leaders like Aristotle, Socrates, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca the Elder, etc. And I am a student those things. I'm horrible at the practice of the things, but I'm a great reader of the things. And one of the great modern leaders of the Stoic space is a guy named Ryan Holiday. And he's written a ton of books. Ego is the enemy. Obstacle is the way. Stillness is key. The Daily Stoic. The Obstacle is the Way is great for anybody listening to this episode to go read, because it's all about literally how to maintain, how to get through obstacles and know that that obstacle, that resistance you're feeling within the organization is what helps you create your best work. It's the same thing as Stephen Pressfield's book, The War of Art. Stephen Pressfield's whole theme in life is that we are all built with resistance inside ourselves that is preventing us from doing our best work. That resistance comes from internally, it comes from the resistance within organizations, etc. And it's through that resistance and the overcoming of that resistance that we do our best work. So for a catalyst thinking that they're going to avoid that resistance, shift your perspective. The resistance is the way to doing your best work. Now, I can't tell you how to get there. I'm just saying that resistance should be welcomed. It should be the thing that fuels creativity and innovation for you. You should be grateful for that resistance. You should find the positive benefits that come through that negative resistance and be grateful for what that teaches you, because that will help you become a catalyst even better. We,
Yes.
in our book, we created an 11-point checklist about this called the Positive Benefits Checklist. And you can go to that part of our book if you're listening to this, and you can literally put any negative resistance, any moment of adversity you've been through in your life or been through when trying to get something done within the workplace, and measure on a scale of 1 to 11, or on a checklist of 11 things, what has that negative resistance taught you about your work? Has it given you greater compassion, self-confidence, self-efficacy, brought a community closer, inspired a new way of thinking, a positive lifestyle change, helped you make more money, whatever? And if you can say yes to a series of those things, you can be grateful for that resistance. You can use that resistance as one of the best things that's ever happened to you. There's a whole scientific study that Kurt Vonnegut did. I'm going to skip that. Or maybe I won't. Actually, it's pretty, I'm
intrigued now. I'd be sad if I didn't hear it.
So Kurt Vonnegut is a science fiction writer from the 1950s and 60s. And one of the groundbreaking things, at least that I love that he did, was he went out and studied a bunch of movies and plays and books and songs, etc. And he studied what emotional arcs do these great works of art follow that made them successful. And what he found is that every book, play, song, poem, whatever that's ever been written essentially follows one of 6 emotional arcs. There's the Cinderella story. There's the comeback kid. There's the this, there's the that, whatever. The most successful box office results per capita movie, book, film ever made is an emotional arc called the, oh my God. It's called The Man in the Hole. Funny goose. This is like my whole life. But The Man in the Hole is the emotional arc where the protagonist is walking along, right? This internal change maker within an organization is walking along. He falls into the hole. He learns some shit while he's at the bottom of that hole. And then he rises up to all new heights. And the thing that he rises up to, the new them, is better and stronger and higher producing than where he was before he fell into the hole. Classic example is Thomas Edison. In the year 19 something, I'm bad at dates, in the year like 1907 or 1917 or whatever, it's in the book, a book that I wrote that I don't even know what I wrote about, but in that year, Thomas Edison was doing great. He was making like $900,000 a year, which in that 1900s was like a lot of money. And one day he's out to dinner and his son rushes in with great fervor. Dad, you got to come quick. You got to come quick. The factory's burning down. Thomas Edison, wipes his mouth, finishes his dinner, stands up slowly and saunters slowly over to his factory. There's 9 different firefighter units putting out this massive fire at the Edison thingy. All his shit's going up in flames, his patents, his machines, whatever. And Edison looks at his son and says, well, you better go get your mom and all her friends. They're not going to want to miss this scene. We'll never see a fire like this again. He was calm. He was casual. He was discerning. Well, they put the fire out. Estimates showed that he lost an entire year's worth of revenue in that one night, about $990,000. Thomas Edison went on that year to make $10 million, 10x what he used to make. Why? Because that resistance gave him an opportunity to do something new, even better, even bolder, even more impact. So if you're looking to create change within an organization, welcome that resistance and know that it's the best thing you got going.
Thank you for all of that. Before I hand it over to Tracy, I also just want to say there's this great quote that connects with everything that you had in your book from Marcus Aurelius. If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment, which just is what you were describing with Thomas.
Dang.
So
I wrote about that in my book.
You did. You're brilliant, Chris. You're brilliant.
No, he's brilliant. We got lucky to find his works. Wait, I'm going to need you to send me that or put it in the show notes below.
We will do that. All right, Tracy, over to you for the rapid fire.
Yes. Rapid fire. I thought we were rapiding right now. This is great.
Right. That wasn't rapid enough. All right. First rapid fire question. What is one thing you do to be ready for a big meeting?
One thing I do to be ready for a big meeting.
Yeah.
In the first 5 minutes of the meeting, I ask them our signature gratitude question. It humanizes them. It allows us to come together in a vulnerable and symbiotic way. Whatever competition or negotiation or ego was involved is evaporated. And now it's all about empathy and humility and connection.
Do you ever have resistance that you meet in the room when you ask your signature gratitude question?
Absolutely. But that's the greatest blessing in the world, because then we don't work together. I'd rather not work with an asshole than be forced into an agreement that I know the other party won't uphold. I'll give you a classic example. One of our clients last year that we put through our year-long gratitude series, very in-depth, lots of coaching, lots of content, lots of crying, all this stuff. It's a big lift, especially for my heart. Yeah, me and the executive sponsor didn't exactly see eye to eye, but he let his team sign up for the program. Now, not only was it just like the team loved it, but the leader never found the benefit in it. And it was the weirdest friggin' energy ever. Do you know, to this day, I've not been paid at all. This is a Fortune 10 company, a very big team at a Fortune 10 company. Can't name names, but I have still not been paid. Now, come on.
Did you see it from the beginning? Like, is there
a
man in the whole moment for you here, Chris?
Yeah, I felt the friction, and against my gut, I wanted the money. And there's a lot of learning lessons in that. My God, there are. I wanted the money. It's good money.
Yeah.
It's going to be great money by the time I'm actually glad I didn't get paid in 2022 and I got to defer taxable income to 2023. It's actually a great blessing in disguise, but
gratitude.
Gratitude everywhere. All right, signature gratitude. That is the preparation. I love it.
Yeah,
All right,
because
second rep.
you can ask that question within a 6-minute window at the start of a meeting. And the best thing that could happen is that the signature gratitude question facilitates a vulnerable conversation that hijacks a sales call, and you don't even get to talking about sales until the last minute. And they're like, wait, so what did you come here to sell me? And I'm like, how do I bring more moments of this into your workplace? Would you like that? Yes. Great. Let's schedule another
Done.
call.
Do you want to tell the audience what that question is now, or do you want to leave them waiting?
So if you're listening here for framework, on July 15th, 2015, I hosted my very first dinner party. And 15 of my friends came to my home, bottle of wine in hand. We worked together to create the meal. We had a shared group experience. We had some decent pasta sauce after my return home from producing a Broadway play in Italy. That's another story. And in the middle of the dinner, I wanted to spice things up a notch. And so I paused the entire dinner and I asked a simple question. If you could give credit or thanks to one person in your life that you don't give enough credit or thanks to, that you've never thought to thank, now who would that be? And if you're listening to this, I want you to think about that. This person, have you talked to them in the last 40 years? Are they sitting next to you right now? Why have you never thought to thank them? What is it in you that's preventing you from feeling that gratitude? What have you learned from them? What's part of the legacy they've passed on to you? Maybe this person had a negative impact on your life. An ex-bad boss, a mean ex-girlfriend, a bully from high school. What are the positive benefits that came through that negative autobiographical experience? What are you grateful for in the wake of their destruction? That person was with us right here, right now. What would you say to them?
Boom. I love how that just rolled off the tongue. Thank you. That was beautiful, Chris.
Thank you for asking it.
Second rapid fire question. If you find yourself with a free day, how do you like to spend that time?
Unplanned plans. My friend Allison Hare made it up, and my friend Naveen really holds me accountable to it. If I randomly have like a whole day wipe out on me, or I get woken up so much, I've been known to do this. It'll be 10:30 a.m. and I've just completed my first meeting of the day, and I will be so inspired that I'll say, all right, team, cancel the rest of my meetings today. I'm going on an adventure, an atelic adventure. Why do I say atelic? Oliver Berkman writes about this in his groundbreaking book, 4,000 Weeks Time Management for Mortals, which the Financial Times named as their favorite book of 2021, my favorite book of 2022. I'm always a late learner, which is the name of Allison Hare's podcast, actually. But Oliver Berkman describes the difference between telic and atelic activities. A telic activity, the Greek or Latin word for telos, means something that reaches an end, a conclusion, a point, a fixed destination, a purpose, a goal. I've got a goal to get married. I've got a goal to sell more. I've got a goal to do this. I've got an end point or destination of most things in my life. Now, what does that cause humanity to feel if we have an end point or a destination to almost everything we do? Whew. We're running around trying to clear our to-do lists and maximize our productivity and squeeze every ounce of everything of every day. Now, what does that do to us? That's left us miserable, disengaged, lonely, disconnected, overwhelmed, burnt out, breaking shit, blah, blah, blah. So what's the opposite of a telic activity? It's an atelic activity, an activity you do with no end goal or purpose, no fixed and finite destination, no end in sight. You do for the sake of doing it. So sometimes it'll be 10:30 in the morning. I'll say, team, cancel my day. I'm going for a walk. And I walk out my door and I've got this app. It's called Pretty Random. It helps you do random number generators. I do two things. One is on a scale of, I first get a number on a scale of 1 to 3. 1 means left, 2 means center, 3 means right. I'll look at a city block and I'll do left, right, center, and it'll tell me which way to go. Right, straight, left. And I'll do on a scale of 1 to 10. It's how many blocks I walk in that direction. If anything fancies me, I walk in it. If anything I want to buy, I buy. If anything I want to talk to, I talk to. And then when the 10 blocks are up or the 7 blocks are up, I do left, right, center again. That's it. And I'll just go and have a fun time.
Sounds amazing.
It's great.
Totally feeling that.
Well, I had joined this conversation today. I don't know if you remember, of course, declaring my fangirlness, but saying, I hope to leave this conversation filled with the joy that I know that you bring to so many. And I am full. I am so happy. And I want to go try so many of the things that you're bringing forward. And as we wrap up, Chris, I'd love to hear, do you have a call to action for our listening audience?
Yes. And it's going to be a rude awakening to some of you. Some of you are battering your heads up against resistance within the workforce. I can't imagine how that feels. I mean, I can. You were probably walking around convincing yourself, God, if only they would see it my way, or they would do things this way, or they would do, and you're probably doing this a lot. I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to tell you straight up. In order to see the change you want to see in others, first you have to make the change within yourself. I want you, if you're listening to this, to take a fearless and searching moral inventory of how you show up in the workplace that you're trying to impact today. You show up with a sense of entitlement, feeling a sense of superiority, that you've got all these dreams and you expect everybody just to get what you're talking about. That's entitlement. Do you show up to work every day feeling like your workplace has jaded you and put baby in a corner and you don't see any other way out? That's a form of entitlement. There's a great book you can read about this subject. It's called The Anatomy of Peace, Resolving the Heart of Conflict, One Relationship at a Time. It's the #1 bestseller in conflict resolution for over a decade. The odds are, if you can look within your own self and make the change that you want to see in others, then you can invite others to collaborate in making the change that you want to see in the world. So wisen up. We're all walking around sniffing of entitlement, and I want you to address that. The good news is entitlement and gratitude can't coexist. If you want some actionable tips on how to go from entitlement to humility, from conflict to connection and compassion and empathy and all these great things, we can definitely help you out either through our books or our coaching or our gratitude experiences. So thanks to the two of y'all for having me today. I'm just so inspired by the work that you do, and I'm so excited that we're beginning this journey together.
Thank you, Chris. Hard lessons, but transformational outcomes for catalysts who really are going to do the work to bring in the big change. So thank you. Deeply, deeply grateful for having you here today.
Thank you.
And thank you to our listening audience. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at www.catalystconstellations.com.
And of course, be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, The Catalyst Guide to Living Well. And if you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send the link their way.
Thanks again.